Hello, everyone, and shalom. I'm Frank Hartmann from Biblical Mastery Academy, and I want to take some time today to share with you 5 expectations that any student who's beginning Biblical Hebrew should have. Remarkably, many students have the wrong expectations when they start learning Biblical Hebrew. In fact, sometimes those wrong expectations keep them from learning Biblical Hebrew when they're fully capable of doing so. And so I'd like to go through 5 expectations with you that you should have and that should be an encouragement to you as you begin down the journey of learning Biblical Hebrew. Well, let's start with our first expectation, and that is that it will be harder at first to learn Biblical Hebrew, but it will ease up. It will become easier as you progress. It'll be harder at first, especially for native English speakers, to get used to the new alphabet, the new script, and perhaps most obviously, the direction of reading is going to go from right to left, not from left to right, as you may be used to. And so these challenges may seem intimidating at first, and they will be hard to get used to, but they are overcomable. They are learnable, and you will progress and get used to these features in Biblical Hebrew. And once you do, the rest of the language will start to fall in place and you'll be more at ease with it. So expect it to be a bit of an uphill climb at first. That's absolutely normal. The second expectation to have as you're learning Biblical Hebrew is the expectation that you will need to dedicate, on average, an hour a day as you're learning Biblical Hebrew. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend an hour every day, but that would be very optimal to do that because it's well known that we learn language as well when we do so in small, manageable chunks. But if that doesn't always fit your schedule, 2 hours a couple times a week would be better than trying to do 5 or 6 hours on a Saturday afternoon. So if you spread it out during the week, expect to spend that kind of time dedicated to language learning. Similarly, it's not always the same task each time you sit down to learn the language. Do vocabulary one day and do some grammar exercises another day and perhaps some reading another day and mix and match. And that will really help you solidify your learning in these smaller, manageable chunks and building consistency as you're doing so. And so expect to have to dedicate that kind of time. When you compare it to other things perhaps in your life that you perhaps waste time on, an hour a day really isn't all that much. The third expectation I'd like to share with you is that it's okay to learn at your pace. Whether you're learning in an environment in which you are self-learning, you're doing the course at your own pace, or whether you're in a classroom environment or an online environment like a cohort with others, you will eventually encounter people who learn faster than you, who seem to pick up stuff easier than you. Don't let that dismay you. You learn at your pace. If you've dedicated to putting the time in and you're learning at a reasonable pace, that's your pace. And so resist the temptation to compare your reading speed to others' reading speed, your pronunciation ability to others' pronunciation ability. You will learn at your pace and continue to encourage yourself with every little step that you take, things that you didn't know last week, things that were unclear to you a week or two ago, now you seem to have mastered. Celebrate those accomplishments and continue to move on in your learning. The fourth expectation when learning Biblical Hebrew that I'd like to share with you is expect to hit the wall. Now, what do I mean by wall? I don't mean you're going to be so frustrated that you're going to punch a wall. I mean it more in the same terms that we know marathon runners run into, no pun intended. They know as they're running that race that there will come a point where their body will want to stop. It will hit the wall. And they need to mentally focus on getting past that because they understand as well that their body is going to generate enough adrenaline and energy to get them through that, and they'll be revived and refreshed and be able to go on to the next part of the race. And In some ways, learning languages can be that way too. Maybe vocabulary is really easy for you and it doesn't pose any problem, but maybe grammar does. Or maybe there's just something that you get to that chapter in the lesson and you're learning and you've been doing so great and you just can't grasp this concept. It's frustrating you. That's your wall. But knowing that that's going to come, having an expectation that you won't just always learn everything right off the bat, when you know that it's coming, you can prepare yourself for it. And therefore, know that maybe you need some extra time. Maybe you need to look at some other resources. Maybe you need some mentorship. One way or the other, you will get past that wall. You can learn that concept and overcome that difficulty, and then enjoy once again everything that you're already enjoying about learning Biblical Hebrew. And the fifth expectation I'd like to share with you today is that beginning Hebrew is not the end of your journey. It's called beginning Hebrew because it is the beginning and it is only a starting point. But if you really have a commitment to be able to learn Hebrew, either through for academic purposes because you're considering going to seminary or Bible college, or maybe you just want to be able to read the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, in its original language so that you can fully appreciate all of the message that God has put into the Hebrew Bible. That's not the end of the story. You may want to progress and be able to read faster, read more thoroughly. You may want to move on to an intermediate level where you're starting to learn linguistic concepts and syntactical concepts, things that will again help you understand Biblical Hebrew better. If for no other reason, just the practice of reading and improving your vocabulary will keep you in the scriptures. It will keep your practice and your abilities fresh. There are countless pastors and others who had to learn Biblical Hebrew at one point, and when they were finished, for them they were done, and they regret it later because all of the gains they made they had lost. So expect to continue to learn even after you're finished with your initial Biblical Hebrew curriculum. If you found this information helpful and encouraging, and you find that these expectations are manageable for you and you have a desire to learn Biblical Hebrew, then I would encourage you to go to bma.to/starterpack and download some information like a roadmap as to how to learn the biblical languages, and perhaps consider joining the Biblical Mastery Academy community, where you'll be joined by many other biblical language learners. And that is very encouraging to be able to do that as a community and as a group. So thank you again for watching, and shalom, and I'll see you in the next video.